Howdy, partners. Welcome to Seared. This is going to be an important episode. If you are a man or have a man or men in your life that you care about in some way, platonic or otherwise, then this is something worthy of sharing. I want to put this out there right off the top. So stick with me, okay? Now, before we dive in, I want to say howdy to all of you who have been listening to this podcast since its inception. Ooh, it's still early days, and this is changing as it grows, naturally. And I already feel like it's getting into a bit of a groove. So thank you to those who have been here since day one or just getting into this now. So again, thank you. As of this recording, we are in December 2023. And I don't know about you, but this daylight savings time thing has been affecting me way more than it ever has in the past. I don't have like SAD, seasonal something disorder, I can't remember, or anything like that. But I can't for the life of me get my bearings when it comes to the day. And it feels like this is something that most people I know are struggling with. Like, it doesn't feel like localized to my little bubble here. I've just never heard so many people going on about this. Maybe I'm more attuned to it, but my homies, I just can't with this thing where 1 minute it's 3 p.m., then it's like midnight within 2 hours. I just don't understand it. I can't wrap my head around it. All I know is that by 5 p.m., I am ready for bed. Anyone else? You feel me there, fam? You feel me? And by the way, as an aside, because this is what I like to do sometimes, I only recently learned that it was a New Zealand entomologist who in the late 1800s was the first to propose daylight savings time. Why? Well, they passed the motion and, from there it gained traction everywhere else. So think of all of this. All this chaos was created because this Kiwi cat wanted to catch and study more bugs. That's it. Talk about the butterfly effect, right? So anyway, glad you're here. And I am going to jump right into this one. Breathe. Let's all breathe. This topic is something that is very dear to my heart. And you'll see why. And I really do hope you stick around for this one. My loyal listener, my loyal viewer. But first I want to get into the story, the stories laid out, right? These are short, but these are in some ways uncannily the same. So these both involve like the exact same thing, the exact same situation. So one was when I was a new cook in this place. And I think it was my first day. It was a busy place. Lots of cooks. I was like junior. Junior. And I walk on the line and it's busy. It's a lunch rush. And they're going at it. And I see by the saucier, right? So he's kind of like the junior sous chef. He's got like a pinup, like a swimsuit calendar up, like on the line. And it was an open kitchen. Now you couldn't really see it. If you're in the dining room, you'd have to like really focus to find it, but it was there. And I was like, what is this? Now I'm new. I don't know anyone and I'm still young in my career, but I go over, I do the old behind, passing through all the different stations. I get to and I tear it off. I rip it off the wall. I can't believe I did that, but I did. And the guy was shocked. He was shocked. Now I'm going to hold there because I'm going to switch to the second one because the responses were exactly the same. So just park it for a second. Okay, so now years later, fast forward, I'm hired as a sous chef at a smaller place. And it's not as big as a line and there's a few cooks. But again, one of my first days, I think it was my first day, I go on and I'm kind of just getting my bearings. And at the end of the line, I don't know what it is, something about at the end of the line on the wall there is a swimsuit calendar. I go over. Now, I'm a sous chef, so I've got a little bit more authority. I've got, I'm not a noob anymore. And I take it off the wall. Simple as that. And the cook, he looked at me shocked. So what was the response? What was this response that they both gave word for word with the same intonation, same inflection? And it was, what? Are you gay? Are you gay? That's the punchline. But don't. That was their response. And, it's so telling that both times, like I was accused of being gay, as if that was the only reason a straight man would take those swimsuit calendars down. Or that it was an insult. Like that's an insult. I mean, when I was growing up, back in the 70s and 80s, saying something was gay was a way of putting it down or describing something as lame or uncool. Like, that TV show is so gay, or that shirt you're wearing is so gay, etc., blah, blah, blah. Now, I don't hear that much. Then again, I'm not surrounded by people who would say that kind of thing. I don't know if kids are saying that now. I have no idea. I'm not in the schoolyards anymore, right? If I was, there'd be a problem. There'd be police be involved. So with all this, what does this all mean other than some frat boys were a little butthurt and perplexed in what I did? And as I sit with it, what comes to me is a big question or a question. When I tore those calendars down, was I being a good man or was I being a nice guy? Interesting. And you may well think, well, Paul, those are very much the exact same thing. What are you talking about? But I'm going to show you in this episode that they are very, very, very different things. And I'm going to explore, maybe a little in real time, where I was coming from that day. Because up until now, actually, I've never actually thought about this. And in that way. And, perhaps you can see maybe where I came from, where I was coming from. Because, like I said, as I was kind of thinking about what I was going to talk about, I never thought of, where was I coming from? The bigger question, of course, would be, what is a man? What does that mean? And that's a huge topic. And, it's not something I can tackle here necessarily. I can tackle it in bits and pieces. But anyway, I'm going to talk more about this kind of stuff in a bit. Anyway, so that's what we're going to get to here. What's the difference between a good man and a nice guy? Again, the idea of in the bigger picture of a good man, what is to be a man, that's for another day. But for now, let's just hit the grill with this question. Nice guys finish last. You hear that a lot, or at least I did. And when I was doing my inner work for the first time, this is when I was getting sober, I realized I had a lot of resentment towards that expression. I railed against the idea that nice guys like me, were always forgotten or taken advantage of. Why was it the assholes and bad boys? Why were they getting all the poontang and attention while the rest of us, oh, poor us, languished in the cellar? It just wasn't fair. Wah. Call the ambulance. I laugh now, but I wasn't back then. And that's because I was a typical nice guy. And what has helped me in my own growth has been identifying and then moving away from the ways of the nice guy. And then stepping into the realm of the good man. When I did that, and listen, I still continue to do this work to this day, I found that I dropped a ton of resentment I had against myself, women in general, and certain notions of manhood. I just want to pause for a moment and just talk about this resentment I had towards women. And I'm almost embarrassed to talk about it But I feel like if there's any nice guys out there who are wondering what's going on in their lives, this may resonate. I used to think that women had it easier. I'm laughing because we know the reality. I thought women had it easier. They could just flash a smile and get whatever they want. They could have any romantic partner. They can have sex any day of the week. They just had to bat an eyelash and they were in like Flynn. I had so many misconstrued and skewed notions of women, and I blamed them for a lot of the things that were my fault. I also blamed men. I had definitely had resentment towards other men, but it wasn't as robust. It wasn't as apparent as it is with women because women were very different from me. The guys I could kind of relate to, but I definitely had to do work around men for sure. But I say this again because a lot of the nice guys that I talk to do still carry this kind of resentment towards women. And it's misdirected, clearly. But they tend to be, and what's interesting, and I'm going to talk about, the traits of a nice guy, but one of them is definitely this, or a few of them are this wanting to get approval from women and wanting to do well in front of them, to be performative in front of them. So there's this almost like a love-hate that they have with women. So anyway, just to share as an aside, because I think it's really important to just discuss that does happen. So I had the resentment toward myself, and like I said, certain notions of what manhood is. Now, to be fully transparent, I'm going to be talking, like what I'm talking about today, a lot of it comes from this book, No More Mr. Nice Guy. If you're listening, I'm holding up a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. This is by Dr. Robert Glover. He is fantastic. It's a must-have, must-read for any men interested in this kind of work. The way Glover describes a nice guy is a guy who believes that if they're good, giving, and caring, they will, in return, be happy, loved, and fulfilled. That they will get their needs met and live a problem-free life. Nice guys are the ones who never seem to lose their temper, who avoid conflict, who want to appease everyone and make everybody feel good. These are the guys who try their mightiest to do things right. They're the guy who lets his wife or partner run the show. They believe in the happy wife, happy life mantra, which drives me nuts, by the way. And they just can't say no to anyone because he's such a stand-up guy. What a guy that Todd is. Whatever. But therein lies some of the problems. More traits of the nice guy. They're givers. They fix and caretake even when not asked. Does that sound familiar? They seek approval from others, especially women, like I mentioned. They avoid conflict, and it's their way of trying to keep their world smooth. They feel like they have to hide their perceived flaws. Oh, that was me. Anyway, they seek the right way. Again, the quote-unquote right way to do things, and just hope that nothing will ever go wrong then. They repress their feelings. They see that as a waste of energy. They struggle to make their own needs a priority, and they see this as virtuous. They make their partners their emotional center. Again, happy wife, happy life. And finally, they're more comfortable relating to women than men. They see themselves as different than other men. They're not like other men, is one of the things they'll say to themselves and to others. And they also think things like anger is for the alpha or the toxic man, the apes out there. So, you might say, okay, well, Paul, that doesn't sound too bad. I mean, what's wrong with putting others first? What's wrong with trying to do the right thing? What's wrong with being even-keeled emotionally? See, when you phrase it like that, that's how nice guys see it, right? And we all cheer nice guys in the movies, and women or other men often say that they're looking for a nice man to take care of them or to share their lives with. But here's the rub. Nice guys are anything but nice. I'm going to say it again. Nice guys are anything but nice. Here are some characteristics of the nice guys that we don't see off the top. This is when we go underneath the surface. 1, they're dishonest. They say what they think others want them to say. They avoid conflict and suppress their true feelings and thoughts. 2, they're secretive. Oh, they're secretive because they so badly want to be liked, they will hide anything that makes them look bad or may bring on conflict. 3, they're manipulative. They have a hard time asking for what they want in direct, clear ways. So they resort to manipulation to get what they want. It's very underhanded. 4, they're full of rage. They hoard up anger and resentment, which, as you can imagine, becomes a pressure cooker, which eventually erupts at the most unexpected and inappropriate times. 5, they have difficulty making and holding boundaries. They have a hard time saying no or stop or this is not for me. And they sit in victimhood. 6, they're controlling. They need to keep their world even-keeled. Remember, you got to keep it smooth. And they need to control as much as they can to fit the narrative of this nice guy. 7, they give to get. Everything is transactional. They give generously, but there are hidden strings attached. They complain often about how much they do and how much they give and not get anything in return. Again, does that sound familiar? 8, they're passive-aggressive. They express anger and disappointment in very roundabout ways. They'll do things like, oh, I forgot. They'll forget things, or they'll be late, or not follow through on things, or be unavailable, or practice things like weaponized incompetence. I don't know. I'm sorry. I didn't know that that's not how you did it, etc., etc. 9, they're addictive. They tend to find solace in stress-relieving and mood-altering substances or activities like sex, porn, alcohol, drugs. I mean, it's a way to deal with stress. So they often will get into addictive behaviors. 10, they struggle in personal relationships. Duh. Namely because of all of the above. So does this sound familiar? Again, is this you? Is this someone you know? Is this some characteristics? You don't have to have these all, but these are definitely, little flags, little signs, if you will. If there's any gents out there who nodded at least once to this list, that you might have a little bit of that nice guy. And to this day, I still have some of those nice guys and, that nice guy thing. And when I read this book, I was challenged because I didn't think I was a nice guy anymore. I thought I'd worked through a lot of stuff, but I was still rolling in the deep, as Adele would say, right? So what you have is a man who feels like he's being done hard by the world, and especially women, like I said, who don't see that he's the problem, right? He doesn't see it, and he's angry about it all. But since a lot of it is unconscious, he's confused as to why things aren't changing for him. Now, as for me, this showed up in resentment towards women, as I described. What I saw was that, I was the problem. Me, hello, hi. And that's a tough pill to swallow. And the nice guy struggles hard because they don't see themselves as the problem. It's like me versus the world. I'm good. I'm fine. It must be all of you numbnuts that are screwing things up. So when I was tearing down those calendars, was it to get approval from the women? There's a question I was asking myself. Was I being performative to get for the women to see that I was doing this? Or was it because truly, truly I was standing in my own values and what I thought was right? Good question. Because here's the thing, a nice guy will be performative to make it seem like he's virtuous or whatnot, to make it look like he cares. when all he really cares about is if he's coming across a certain way. And again, it's not always conscious, right? But that's what makes it doubly insinuous, right? It's because it's coming from a belief which is coming through the subconscious. So you don't even know that you're doing that. And remember, the way a nice guy works at a deep level is that if he can hide his flaws and become what others think he should be, then he'll be loved and get their needs met and have a life without friction or folly. And when things aren't working out the way they see it, they do what they know and they double down. They work harder at the things that aren't serving them or anyone else, because that's all us nice guys would know. The nice guy, again, is the one who avoids conflicts with his partner to keep the peace. But of course, it only bottles things up. It solves nothing and frustrates the hell out of their partners. I know my wife would go nuts in the way I acted. You know, the nice guys who will then act out in their own way, right? And it's frustrating. You know, he's the guy who can't say no to his boss or tell them, what he thinks, truly what his opinions and thoughts are. He just thinks of what they want him to say. He'll do the same with his coworkers, but he's never in integrity with his own self. He's the guy that will do whatever for anyone because he wants to be liked and doesn't want to rock the boat. The problem is that because he is resentful and drained and manipulative and all that, he will inevitably fuck it up. He will act out. He'll self-sabotage. He'll explode. He'll ignore and do things that have the complete opposite effect of what he seeks. You feel me? Now, how is the nice guy created? We're not going to get into all of that because there's so many reasons. And Glover does a great job of covering this in the book. But a lot of it comes down to shame. There's also abandonment issues, but a lot of shame. And a lot of what nice guys do is in preventing the pain of both shame and abandonment. They hide their humanity so they can avoid pain. I can totally relate to that. All right. So we have an overall picture of the nice guy. What about the good man? Or sometimes called the integrated man. What does that look like? And how do you make the switch from nice guy to good man? I'm going to tackle that next. And hint, it's not easy, but it's doable. So hang tight. So now we know what the nice guy looks like. Not so appealing, right? And if this is you, and I was totally this guy for most of my 20 years as an adult, the first 20 years or so, then know that it doesn't have to be this way anymore. And know that this is not about shaming nice guys. Like we said, shame is a big reason how nice guys are been made, so to speak. But if you see any part of what I've been talking about, then it's up to you to make the changes. Because you want to start stepping into like an integrated or good man. A good man accepts themselves just as they are. They set and enforce boundaries. A good man is his word. He accepts the ups and downs of life and is at peace with them. He tackles problems head on and builds meaningful relationships with men and women in different but powerful ways. And he stands in integrity. The integrated man understands, hey, mistakes happen, shit happens, and uses them as learning tools. They ask for what they want in healthy ways. And they stop comparing themselves to others. They just don't do it. They don't seek validation from others. They give without condition. And they face their fears head on. And most importantly, they see themselves as the perfectly imperfect man they are. Sounds quite powerful, doesn't it? Sounds like someone you would maybe want to hang around with, right? Or be with, or just whatever. Because there's a certain energy around that. A good man is not limited by what he thinks others think he should do, say, or behave. He does things because it's right for him and it's in alignment with his values. It's important to know the difference between nice guy and good man, because on the surface, both men can look the same, sound the same, and do the same things. The big difference is the intention behind those actions. The nice guy will probably do the right thing for the wrong reasons, whereas the integrated man does it because that's his character. Because he sits in integrity and knows his priorities and knows what is right for him. So this brings me back to the question I asked earlier on. When I yanked those swimsuit calendars down off the wall, what were my intentions? If I were coming at it from the place of the nice guy, it would probably be to score brownie points with the women who may have been watching. Oh, look at him in action. It would be coming from the place of seeming like I cared about the well-being of others, to be the hero fighting injustice. It would be maybe because, I had a dad or brothers who did that kind of thing, had the pinups or whatever, and I didn't want to be one of those guys. Now, an integrated man, if they were me taking those down, they would have removed the calendars even if no women were around. They'd be coming from the place of the values and principles that he stands for. He would do it because he has boundaries around, let's say, objectifying women, and wouldn't allow it no matter what. He would do it because he doesn't pussyfoot around and takes on what he sees as a problem head on and clearly and directly. The act of ripping down the calendar looks the same, but the inner mechanisms are completely different. Now, even as I say these out loud, I feel like I was sitting in good man energy. I say that because remember, nice guys don't like conflict. They do everything they can to avoid it. I mean, remember, I walked in and without even knowing any of these guys, tore down their little swimsuit pinup thingies. I mean, talk about inviting conflict. I mean, I was aware women were there, but I didn't feel like I was hoping they would notice. You know what I mean? In fact, I never heard a peep from them ever. And I was there at these places for years. I don't even know if they saw it. Whatever. It didn't matter to me. Right? Now, maybe a small part of me wishes that they did, but that's ego or nice guy energy. But I just knew in my heart that I couldn't work in a place that felt and looked like a truck stop bathroom. So it was against my usual way of operating, which was staying low and under the radar and docile and unassuming. I went guns a-blazing, pew pew, which was so not like me because I was a nice guy. But it's like all of a sudden this integrated part of me came up, which was lovely. And it did good, at least I thought, for me. But that's the power of good man energy, quote unquote. I didn't have anyone try to put up those things again, to be honest. No one got in my grill about it. nothing really happened. In fact, I got on really well with those guys after I confronted them, So I think as I'm reflecting, we may not like decisions made by strong, and this could be women too, but we can respect them. And I feel like there was respect there. They may have not agreed with me, but they said, you know what? They probably knew deep down that I had a point. And maybe they were just getting away with this, which is a bigger issue because, our bosses let that slide. It's interesting. I just had a quick, that same place, one of the places, when I started there was a guy already named Paul. Now, back in the 90s, early 2000s, I think it was the 90s, chefware was wild, right? Like everyone had the jackets, of course, the white jackets, but pants, A lot of places you had to bring your own pants. And so instead of just like the basic black or maybe some pinstripes, they had all sorts of wild patterns. It was nuts. And of course I'm like, I just want to stand out. And I bought these pants. Now I think about it, it's interesting because it had like cactus and like, dried out, bull skulls, all that very typical classic kind of like desert kind of. And so they were doing the schedule. And like I said, they had another Paul. So the way to discern me is they called me Cowboy Paul. They called me. So on my schedule, I'm like, Cowboy Paul, was that in there? One of the sushi? Oh, yes, because your pants. That's the only way we were in discern. It's like, you could use last names. Have you thought of that? Anyway. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so getting back to the good guy, nice guy thing. So how do you make the shift? It's a great question. And it starts with the simple act of making the decision that you want to change. And do it because you are tired of living the life you are living. When you 100% make that decision, then you can move ahead. I'm going to lay out a few of the basics. Now, if you do want like a real deep dive into this, please, the book, I know I keep showing it, keep mentioning it, No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover, please get it. He's got a ton of exercises and also lays out the why of everything. It's such a fantastic book. But the first thing a recovering ineffective man or nice guy is to start the practice of self-approval. Remember that one thing nice guys are always doing is seeking approval and or trying to impress. So, what if you could start looking at what you like to do? What makes you happy? What feels right to you? No asking others. You answer the question. Think of one thing that you do to make yourself look good or to impress or to seek approval. He actually suggests making a list, but I'm going to ask you to pick one. Maybe it's how you dress, or maybe taking on all and any projects, or maybe working out like mad at the gym, or never getting mad, or working hard to be a great lover, or whatever. Pick one. Then for a week, stop doing that thing. Stop it. Allow your intuition to guide you here. Step into discomfort. See how it changes things internally and externally. It's going to be uncomfortable. Oh, it's going to be uncomfortable. Right? But that's the point. And if you muck it up, talk to someone you feel comfortable with. Don't add more shame to your plate. It's about letting go of the need to look perfect or infallible. Another way of looking at all of this is, how would you live your life if you didn't care what others thought of you? What would that show up as? Okay, next one. And this is going to be a tough one. I mean, they all are, my dudes. Start taking care of yourself. Things you enjoy that benefit you and you alone, that you don't need permission to do. When you start doing these kinds of things, you will start to feel that you have more worth or value. Then your actions will start to reflect this new belief. This is starting to like change the subconscious a little bit. And this can be anything from drinking enough water during the day, going for walks, getting enough sleep, going for a massage, hanging out with your buddies, getting a new shirt or watch, or going to the gym, doing yoga, dressing up more or less, depending on what your current habit is, or anything like that. You do you, boo, as they say. And this is about what feels right for you. How do you take care of yourself? How do you tend to you? And it's going to suck at first. I know it sounds weird, but it will suck at first because you're probably going to be anxious or guilty. You're going to feel guilty. You're going to be in conflict with the old message that you don't matter or that you don't have worth. But I implore you to persist. See how you feel after a week or even several weeks. Another thing you can do, and it's like spending time alone, right? So this is kind of dovetailing into this third one, spending time alone, quality time, not time hiding out. It's sort of like dating yourself, right? Like take yourself on dates, go to the museum or a monster truck show or punk rock show. I sound so old. Go to punk rock. It's whatever you want, right? Whatever lights you up. And do it alone. See if you can, like, even take a weekend at a hotel or cottage or something by yourself. I used to do this 4 times a year. I used to go into a hotel in the city for a weekend. I did it 4 times a year, once a quarter. It was for a business thing, but it was also just for me. I don't have to worry about the kids, the dogs, feeding other people, dishwasher, like nothing. I just did what I wanted. I did some work, but that was just a small part of really what it was. So if you can get to do something look, you get to eat what you want. You get to go where you want to go. You can sleep as much as you want. Now, if you're single, still go out because it'll be a new environment, right? If you stay, it's like a staycation. Staycations can be cool, but you're still in your own comfortable environment. Now, if you have a family, of course, let them know what you're doing, but still plan it. Don't ask permission. Pick a date and do it. And that alone, even just doing that, is going to push you out of your nice guy way of doing things. Just a quick aside, one of the things, I was in a men's group 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and this came up a lot about asking for permission with wives or girlfriends. And it was just like, is it okay if I just do, is it okay if I go out with my friends? Is it okay if I, and we're the pushback was, well, we have to there's childcare and all that. I get it. Absolutely. But the idea is, instead of saying, oh, is it okay if I go out with the guys? I'm like, I want to go out with my boys and we need to pick a day. What's a good day that I can go out? You see the difference? As opposed to, honey, is it okay? Bob and John and Muhammad and they want to go. It sounds like you're a little kid asking your parent for something. And so stepping into integrated man is, I'm going to do this. We're planning on this. Okay, so how can we make this happen? That's different. All right. Now, when you are not caught up in addictive behavior and old habits and old patterns, etc., and you see how you're feeling cared for and freed up and all that, you will question some of the relationships, choices, and environments you've had. So when you do these things and you take time out and you do the things that are good for you, and you start to feel better about yourself, guess what? You're going to start making changes. You're going to question certain things that you've been doing up until then. You're going to start to feel like a king. And that's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. And I want to share one more thing. Start hanging out with at least one person you feel safe opening up to. Like truly being yourself. Nice guys are always shielding their humanity. And I know I used to do this. I used to see myself as, it sounds funny, but I used to see myself as an alien in a way, who was observing your bizarre planet, and eventually I would make my notes and go back to the mothership, and when I did that, what happened was I created this persona that I had no need for emotions. I had no need for relationships, or I didn't even have simple human needs that needed attending to. It sounds twisted, but that's how twisted my thinking was. So for you, when you step into the trust of opening up to someone, it's going to be scary as fuck. But it's needed. And this can be a friend, a trusted coworker, a therapist, a coach, you know what I'm saying, coach, or a men's group. Now, just by the way, I started a men's group, and I'm going to share a little bit more about this, but this is something that may be useful to you. The idea is to start being human, to identify being vulnerable and seeing that you're no better nor worse than anyone else, and that people will still love you and care about you in spite of your so-called flaws. In fact, people will actually respect and love you more because of these flaws. When people open up and share the things that bring them shame, it's most people will respond to respecting them even more and loving them harder. In the end, when you do these things that, have been laid out here, you'll see that you're not a bad person, that you're worthy of other people's love, including yours, and that you don't have to hide your true self and your humanity. How cool is that? Now that's just one step. That's just the beginning. And there's more. But even if you just start with these, even if you just start with this one of these things, I guarantee you're going to feel a whole lot better. You're going to feel different. What will happen is that you'll start to break out of old patterns, and that you'll see that you've been tolerating situations that you no longer need to tolerate. You'll start to see yourself in healthier ways. You'll see that as you grow into boundary work and prioritizing your own needs and learning to give without strings attached and standing in your own power and not victimhood and such, that you're going to transform. You're going to be magnetizing. The things you actually want to come to you are going to come to you without all the manipulation, controlling, and lying and all that. You're going to start to have better relationships. You're going to have a better sex life. You're going to have stronger friendships and more productivity at work and so much more, all from doing the work. This can apply to anyone, any person, and any inner work, but I'm talking to you men specifically. But it all starts with a decision. It starts with the desire to change how you see yourself in the world. So, what will it be? A nice guy or a good man? It's your call, my dude. All right. Whew. I'm gonna limber up a little here now. I'm getting warmed up. Unfortunately, we are going to start to wind down. I'm going to give some final thoughts. We're going to plate up a few final thoughts, and then we're going to finish it up. Let's be real here. This isn't easy work and can take a long time to work out of our system. But if you're willing to tackle it, it can make a massive difference in your life. Not just for you, beautiful bloke out there, but for everyone in your sphere of influence. Your family, your business or work, your community, they all benefit. They benefit from a man or person who is firm in his convictions, who stands up for what he believes in, who is ready to tackle challenges head on, who lovingly calls out others, who holds strong boundaries, who loves himself and others fiercely, and is also open to share and be vulnerable and speak his mind. How wonderful does that sound? Because that is available to all of us. But here's the thing. Even if you just, like I said, change one thing right now, that's a huge step. It's a huge step. You don't have to transform overnight. It won't happen that way. But for me, as I can share for me, it started with asking for what I needed. That was my first one. And I just went with that for a while. Then I started to practice boundaries. Actually, I practiced practicing boundaries at work, and that was really helpful. Then I stepped into making decisions because I was very undecisive, and I was like, what do you think? Or what do you want to do? Like, no, I was just like, I would like to do this. These were all things that were very foreign to me, and I was really scared to do them. But it got me into a new place, because the old place got me into victimhood and drinking and all that kind of undesirable way of beings. And look, there's nothing wrong with being of service to others. To be nice, to speak, to help, to uplift, to share, to give of yourself, to go to bat for others or go above and beyond. I'm not saying don't do that. But come from the place of strength and power when doing those things, not from a place of victim and powerlessness. Again, good man and nice guy could look the same on the surface. It's the intentions. Now, one thing I failed to mention, and which is so important, and again, Glover talks about this as well, is having those around you that you can ask for support from. Someone who can cheer you on or listen to you or help you stay accountable. It can be a buddy who gets it. It could be someone in a men's group or someone else you feel safe with, And if it's another man, even better. I feel this is something that this kind of work is stuff you want to do with men only. Women are already doing Enough emotional labor for us. So it's time to lean on other men and have them lean on us. And this was a big one for me. I had a very hard time with this. Just quickly, I think I've mentioned this maybe in another episode. I mean, when I got sober and I was in a 12-step, and, men with men, women with women, it was very, it was the rule, so to speak. And the guy that I was working with, big hulking, looked like a biker. He was a bouncer, everything. He was the opposite of everything I kind of was, but he was a beautiful man. Loved him. And we would talk. He had shift work. I had some, and the only time we would really talk was late at night. And he would take me to a park and sit on the park bench, and I'd be beside him. And it was so uncomfortable because the only time that I would sit on a park bench late at night was if it was with a woman and I wanted to make a move. So it was very uncomfortable because there was this intimacy that for a lot of men, especially nice guys, we connect intimacy with romance and sex. And so one of the things an integrator, a good man, learns is that is not the case. You can be intimate, emotionally intimate with another man and men, and just it's platonic. And so this is part of getting out of the habit of trying to impress and charm and all that kind of stuff with women. Working with men, it's so important that we bounce things off of men first. It's so important, especially when it comes to relationships. I mentioned the men's group earlier. I've mentioned a couple times. I have started one. It's fairly new. It meets every Thursday at 1:00 Eastern. It's virtual. I know it's middle of the day, but there's so many different time zones. There's people in Malta and, United Arab Emirates and all that kind of stuff. So it's a matter of trying to support as many as I can. So I might do something about Sundays. I don't know. I'm not sure. But for now, it's Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. We had a dozen beautiful men show up at the first one, and I know there's more to come. Like, lots of guys have messaged me. I can't wait to join. We also have a very active WhatsApp group, and that's been really good too. And the good thing, all free. I'm not charging anything. There's no expectation of charging. So I'm going to leave the information in the show notes. If you're interested, or if you know someone that you think maybe give them a little nudge, which has happened. There's a few of the guys that their wives said, hey, here's a link. And they clicked, and they're so happy that they've done. And of course, I can't do this without saying that I do also coach men privately. Now, I don't just coach men, but I do help men in the areas that we've been talking about. I've worked with many men, helped them open themselves up to be more confident and to step into their own power. And so if you're interested in becoming the truer, more aligned, more congruent man or person, like I said, it's not just men, I do have coaching packages of 1, 3, 6, and 12 sessions. And so we can start, you can start wherever you feel most comfortable with. Again, the show notes, it's just all on my website. So I'm going to have that all there for you. Yeah, it's a lot and it's awesome. And I just love doing what I do. So speaking of show, please help supporting this show by recommending it to others or sharing it on your social media or forwarding it to someone who you may think may benefit. Any sort of interaction you have with the show really does help open it up more. It's hard to grow in a bubble, and it's hard to grow on my own. I would really love your help to get the word out there. So please help out in any way. All right. Enough shameless groveling. Oh, it's time for coffee. It's a little early in the morning, but I am going to hit my second cup. So with that, kitchen's closed. Now scram.